Jeff, great to have you with us here on Football Americas. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
All right, so we know the story around the U.S. women's national team. Obviously, last week was very difficult with everything that came out around the Sally Yates investigation. But we also know, Jeff, the story around this Spanish national team is they were without 15 of their key players who are having a standoff right now with the federation and their coach. So provided all that context, just how bad is the result and the performance for the United States against the Spanish team?
Yeah, it was bad, Sebi. I mean, there are losses that you can kind of take away from and say, okay, maybe some positives. I think even that England game, maybe if you're looking at it optimistically, you say, okay, maybe we walk away with a 2-2 draw if it's not for that bogus offside call. This Spain game, I thought was pretty lifeless from the opening whistle from the U.S. Obviously, the set piece goal they give up, the missed mark on the second goal, really never threatened in this game in any capacity. And I think that's the thing that you come away, especially after the loss to England, the Spain side here, which a B team, a youth team, really a very young and inexperienced team. And yes, as you said, the context of the Yates report, I think we can all empathize with how that weighed on U.S. players. But this is a loss that you come away with really having to ask some more existential questions about how are things working and is this the right course that we're on headed toward the World Cup.
But Jeff, specifically the attack, I mean, against England, only 2 shots on goal, same versus Spain. I know there are some key pieces missing in that attack, but what can be done to kind of kickstart this offense?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the strengths of this U.S. team, both in depth and quality, are on the wings. So you start talking about the system, and I think there is a real question here of if this 4-3-3 is working. It's about 5-6 years now of playing in this system, and you need a system that utilizes these wingers. Mallory Pugh, who didn't play in these games, is a big miss. Sophia Smith got moved into the 9 because Alex Morgan was missing. So, something those wings need to be utilized. So, then you get into this conversation of, do you switch to a 4-2-3-1? Because I think Herc, I think the midfield for me is the big concern, and it's not a talent problem because you've got Rose Lavelle in there, Lindsey Horan, you've got Andy Sullivan has taken on that number 6 role. Individually, there's not a talent problem, but it hasn't clicked and it hasn't come together. So, there has been a lot of conversation, do you need a double pivot there? What does that look like? But you move those pieces around and you might start talking about sacrificing that great wing play. And I think that, that's a real concern if you're Vlatko Nanofsky. So for me, I think that the midfield needs real addressing, and that will help the attack. You look at our ESPN stats and info, folks, no successful through balls for the U.S. in 3 straight games. I mean, that's a problem for me that's deeper than that front 3.
Jeff, the FIFA rankings came out today. The U.S. still number 1, still the top team in the world, according to FIFA. I feel like before this window, if I would have said, hey, the U.S. are favorites to win the World Cup, I might have got some pushback, but it's a pretty fair statement. Now, after this window, it's hard to even think about saying it, but I'll ask it to you. Are the U.S. still World Cup favorites?
No, and I think you would have got a lot of pushback, even before that. But yeah, I think, you look at the form of England and obviously the head-to-head that just occurred. I thought we'd speak about that midfield again. I mean, England, player for player in midfield, I thought was spectacular against the U.S. and really dominated that game. I mean, they almost threefold outpassed them, obviously outpossessed them significantly. So, I don't see the U.S. as favorites. I think that, we've talked about it through this year, really, in this generational transition of, does this team still have a fear factor? I don't think teams are scared of this particular U.S. squad. Obviously, the turnover in players, it's not the same U.S. team that it's been for the past decade, really. So I think you have to look at England as certainly a favorite, champions of Europe, and the form that they're in. Can the U.S. take something from this and maybe rally around it? I think they did that in 2015 to a degree. 2019, I think they were clear favorites. 2015, not so much. But, again, very different group and a very young group that hasn't been through this before, save from, a few veterans. So I think we're at a point here where, we expected to have a challenge for the U.S. in a tough friendly like this. We want to see how they respond. We'll see that in 2 games upcoming against Germany. And, I think it's going to be a real test for how this relatively young and inexperienced group responds because they haven't been in a pressure moment like this before.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.